Okay, we are live. YouTube, excellent connection. Stream health looks good. Seems like Instagram is looking good also. Perfect, perfect. It's telling me to hang on a bit. I will hang on. Okay, cool. So, welcome. Welcome to brew number 3 that we're doing with these beans over here, these Kenyan beans that I got from Kaffebox, the coffee subscription service, roasted by Matteo. So far, we've gotten mediocre cups, I must say, and I think I know the issue. So since we need to use a really coarse grind size on this brewing technique, since we're pulse pouring, I've been having problems with fines. And one of the reasons is that I've had my grinder for close to 10 years now, and I have never changed the burrs in the grinder. I've cleaned it out multiple times, but I've never actually changed the burrs. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna mitigate those fines by using a Crew sifter. So if you don't know what a Crew sifter is, just think of it as a thing that removes fines from the coffee and makes it so that you can easily control exact grind sizes with this thing. So we're gonna use this guy to remove the fines and compensate for my old ancient grinder. So let's move over here. And if you guys have any questions about your coffee setup or what I am doing, then just feel free to post those in the comments, and I'll eventually get to it after the brew. But I'll move you peeps down now to the brewing setup, like so. And what we're gonna use today is this recipe over here. So it's a 1:15 brewing ratio. Pretty much all is the same as yesterday, but the grind size. So temperature 92 degrees Celsius, 20 grams of coffee, 300 grams of water, and the big change is 43 grind setting instead of 45. And yet again, the other big thing is using the Crew sifter together with this technique. So let me show you how the Crew sifter works. So if I open this thing here, it has this mesh going on where it will filter out the fines. And I kind of just want to filter out the lowest and smallest fines. So if I look at the top area over here, it shows what microns these holes are at. So a smaller number means smaller holes, means smaller fines being sifted. So I'm going to sift out everything under 200 microns using this filter sifter over here. I put that into the contraption by snapping it in place. Like so. Oop. Fully snapped in. There we go. Okay, so now it's snapped in. And I'm not going to use the top filter, so there's actually 2 layers of sifting that you can have. I'm just going to use the bottom layer, like so. So I pour in the grinds and I shake this thing out, and we will see all of the fines that are in the coffee here. So now let's measure out our coffee. Measuring out 20 grams, but since we're also sifting out some of the grinds, we're going to measure a bit more. So we're going to measure around 22 grams of coffee. And I've already changed my grinder to the 43 brand setting that we want. Okay, so now we got our grinds. And now we'll be sifting. So I open up the sifter, I pour it in, like so. I put the lid on, or I don't have to put the lid on, I guess. I can shake it very easily. So you can kind of see it moving around in here. Give it a tap. Oh. Actually, it's way easier with the lid because you can kind of like shake it a bit more vigorously. Good morning to everyone. Okay, so now that I've shaken it a bit, let's just take a peek. So we're already seeing some of the fines coming out of here. This is the magic of the Crew sifter. Like so. I'm not going to shake it too much. And then we open it up to the layer that we want. And then we pour this back into the cup. So I didn't really sift that many fines. So around 1 gram of fines was sifted away. And you can see that right over here. Yeah, this is like espresso powdery fines right over here. But if I hadn't done that, the fines would have gotten into my brew and it would make a layer that looks like so in my cup of coffee. So it's really important to keep the fines to a minimum and make sure that you keep it in check, because the filtered brewing method is kind of not forgiving with fines. You gotta have a good grinder and all that jazz. Okay, so let's take this down to 20 grams. So next time I'm just gonna measure 1 gram over, I think. Like so. Let's get our boiling water. Actually, I'm gonna move this a bit further. So Instagram gets mostly the brewer, while YouTube gets both of the things. Okay, so we'll fold our filter. And we'll preheat. Pour out the water. And we also now need to cool down our liquid because we're brewing with a 92°C water here. So add a dash of water. Right, so perfect. 92. Pour in our coffee grinds. that a shake. And we will begin. So another small change that we're making today is that we are changing the dosage of the first two pours. So instead of pouring 60 grams and then 60 grams, we're pouring 40 grams and then 80 grams. And this is to supposedly make it sweeter, the brew, according to the technique. Let's begin. So I'll first pour 40 grams of water, like so. And then we're gonna let that fully drain out all the way through. And then we'll be adding the 80 grams up to 120. Okay. And now we let this fully drain through, and then we're gonna pour 3 segments of 60 grams of water. Okay, now that is fully drained. How is everyone's morning going? I actually love this type of weather. It's like overcast, because whenever it's too sunny out there, it becomes so hot here when I'm like streaming and stuff that yeah, I start like slightly sweating and stuff. But yeah, it's amazing weather. It was raining yesterday, slightly humid. For the next segment. And I said this before, but in my opinion, biggest downside of this technique is just the waiting of it. It's been raining all day in Sweden. That sucks unless you like rain. I don't mind like drizzling rain, but if it's downpouring and you really need to bundle up with a raincoat and stuff, then that's a bit too much for me. And there we go, 300 grams. Just let it fully drain out. And another thing that I've realized with this technique, the Tetsu Kasuya, is that as the increments go further and further into the brew, the drawdown time becomes way slower and slower. And it really is because of that agitation and stop between pours that allow the fines to settle into the filter and clog it up a bit more. So by using the Crew sifter, we've actually kind of removed 20-30 seconds from our brew time over here. And the bed looks much like coarser compared to the other one, which had way more fines in it too. So that's the full draw, and here's the coffee bed. Pretty nice and even, as in flat and level, but also not too many like muddy aspects on the top of it. Give that a stir. And there we have it, our cup of coffee, brew number 3. Let's see how this tastes in a moment while I move up the cameras. Like so. So what are my expectations from this cup over here? Well, since we used the Crew sifter, we removed some of the fines, and hopefully it doesn't have a kind of like muddiness to it and over extracted like weird qualities. But overall, I'm hoping that it will have more berry acidities and sweetness, because we also changed our recipe to have a shorter increment in the beginning so that it would, according to the recipe technique, increase sweetness in the brew. So yet again, we changed it from a 60-60 pour to a 40-80 pour. And according to the technique, this is supposed to increase sweetness. If you do it the other way around, meaning 80-40, it should be focusing on the acidity instead. Okay, let's give it a taste. So I'm actually still tasting it to be slightly over extracted now. Like, I thought that removing some of the fines would fix it and make it better, but it's interesting because yesterday's cup was actually under extracted and we did some changes. We made it finer, the grind size. And today, changing the grind size, making it finer, it does make it extract more. However, I was hoping that the fines that we removed would kind of compensate for that and make it a bit more of a balanced cup of coffee. But right now, this cup over here is slightly over extracted. But it's actually kind of pleasant too. So it does have some raspy qualities on my tongue. It is slightly drying, but it's not like the Sahara desert in my mouth. You know, it's just not the dryness that I kind of want if I want a bitterness in my coffee. So this over here is just has a slight lingering dryness and raspiness on my tongue as I sip it. And we can totally pinpoint that to the over extractedness of the cup. So what are we going to do to fix that? Well, we can kind of go back to the grind size and play it over there by increasing it back to 45 or even going higher to 47, because I have a feeling that the range of the grind size that we're playing at right now might just be too fine. I was looking at the videos of the Tetsu Kasuya technique a bit further, and the grind size is actually even coarser than what I've been doing. It's like coarse. So I might want to try a big change and move it all the way up to like 50 on my grinder with the Crew sifter and sifting some stuff out, just to see how it is, because I want to try to get it under extracted, like really under extracted, and see how it tastes like, but have never gotten it to that point yet. So I think we might give that a whirl. So just do a big change and see how the cup tastes like with even coarser grinds is what we're gonna do for tomorrow. So David asks, how would changing the body with less pores do? Maybe, yeah, we could try that too. I don't think the body is okay, so winding back. With this technique over here, the number of pores in the second part determine how strong the coffee is. So the more pores you do, so let's say you do it in 5 increments instead of 3, that means that the coffee becomes stronger in strength. And this is because you let the coffee settle a bit longer, it extracts a bit more from the bean, and it increases the strength of the cup. So what David is saying is that maybe to change the extraction over here, we can decrease the pulses over here to compensate for that over extractiveness. And yeah, less agitation also matters here. So by increasing the pores, it's letting it settle more agitation, which leads to more extraction. By decreasing it, you have less extraction, less agitation, and so. I need to flip my camera, but then I can't see the thing. Can I let's see. I don't even know how I would do it, actually. Because then I can't read the chat. Yes. I'll have to think about it. Maybe dropping the temperature to reduce extraction. Yeah, all of these are great options for changing the extraction. And I've actually never played around with the strength part of it over here by increasing and decreasing it. So maybe that will be the thing that we'll play around with for tomorrow. So maybe just make it into a single pour at the end. But yeah, why not? Let's give it a whirl. Let's see what happens. So right now, this cup over here is over extracted. To change that extraction, we're gonna do a 1 pour at the end instead of 3 pours. And that will hopefully lower the extraction by decreasing the agitation and also making the fines not settle that much in the filter, which would then elongate the brew time and contact time between water and bean. Hey, hey, happy brewing indeed. Some troubleshooting. For Instagram peeps, how would I have this whiteboard correctly moved? Like, if I do this and flip it, no. There's a beauty button here. Anyways, I'll have to think of it. Maybe it's just a sad reality that Instagram, everything will be flipped and you can't read the text. But yeah, all of these are great suggestions. The water temperature one is great too, because I've currently just kept it stable at 92 degrees Celsius. I've actually never tried it with the pulsing, so changing the pulse and seeing how much the agitation changes the extraction. So agitation is kind of weird because how do you measure agitation? And this technique over here actually has a way of measuring agitation. It's 1 pour, low agitation, many pours, high agitation. So you can kind of compartmentalize it and pour in increments. So yeah, why don't we try out the technique with the pouring and use our technique instead and the method of tweaking the recipe to compensate for the extraction. So tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll take all of these and make a 180 pour. Like so. That's 180 grams. Kind of ugly written, but yes. And we'll see how it goes. But overall, like, it's not a horrible cup. I would drink it. It's just slightly over extracted, and comparing this to, yet again, what I got from the cupping, it was just way more berry-like, light, delicate, and enjoyable, that cupping session. And this one over here is just a bit over extracted, slightly drying, and lacking in those acidities and sweetnesses that I was getting in the cupping session. What V60 filters are you using? Tab, no tab, etc. I like the no tab. So that was a question on YouTube by Eric, and I only use the tabbed ones because that's the only ones I can get my hands on. I used to love the no tabbed ones because of the flow rate being super quick compared to the tabbed ones, but sadly enough, getting my hands on untapped ones is not as easy as it seems here in Toronto. So if I want to have something similar to a tabbed or a no tabbed filter, I would probably use a fabric filter to speed up that flow rate. Or even look into like the Kaffebox filters that are specially made for specific roast levels, so that I can have a bit more of a control on the flow rate. So yeah, the filter matters too, for sure. And what I'm using right now is a filter that is a bit slower, meaning the liquid doesn't drain as fast through the filter. Yeah, so it kind of has like that astringency. You know, when you drink like a dry wine of sorts, that's kind of like the, or like a black, or like some kind of tea. Like, what teas do we have? It's like English breakfast or something, and it's been steeping for just a bit too long. That type of dryness is what is happening over here. So just looking at the filters that I have again, I'm using these guys. Paper filters, tabbed, Hario V60. And I might maybe do another change by moving over to a fabric filter instead down the road to speed up the process. Tannic. Interesting. I've never described it as tannic. Is that like metallic? Kinda? So the reason why I'm confident that the taste that I'm getting over here is over extractedness is because when I was cupping this coffee, it did not have these drying, tannic, astringent flavors in my coffee in that cupping session. So I know that it can have the sweetness, berry-like acidities with a very light, delicate body without that overbearing part of it. tannins. It's for sure in wine, but I'm not sure if it's always the same thing in coffee. Like that feeling is there, and sometimes it's a positive one, for sure. But in this cup of coffee, it's a bit overbearing. And I know that it doesn't need to be there for it to be a good cup of coffee. Yes, Tino first. But I think that, or actually, I'm pretty confident that we just need to lower the extraction. Yeah, that could be the same thing too, where the filter is just a bit too slow, maybe. Like, two of you have commented on the filter, and maybe that is a thing too, because the brew time is still pretty long. It's like 4.5 minutes or so. And even though I'm like sifting the fines out and stuff, this technique, this Tetsu Kasuya technique, is really not forgiving with brew time. Like, it really has a lot of contact time between grinds and water because of those pulse pores and because of the extra agitation that allows the fines to mitigate on the filter and settle down. Yeah, give it a whirl. Let me know how it goes going coarser on your coffee today. So maybe we're gonna do two things to try to mitigate this. Let's actually no, okay, I lied. We're gonna keep it simple. We're just gonna do this over here, and hopefully that will change the extraction enough. Going from 3 pours to 1 pour. Let's keep it simple. Let's isolate the variables and make sure that the thing we're doing is impacting the coffee, and that is the one change that we know did the thing. Yeah, I know 4 minutes and 30 seconds is kind of long, and it might be the filter. Like, I'm used to using this filter a lot with just a continuous pour, which I haven't had any issues with. And normally I use a fabric filter if I want to have a quicker drawdown rate. But maybe I need to do some tweaks on the filter. But yet again, for tomorrow, we are just changing one thing, and that is the technique by pouring 1 continuous pour for the second segment, the 60%, instead of 3 pours. So I love this chatter over here. This is good. How is everyone's day? I'm assuming this is your first cup of coffee that you'll be brewing today, Hassan? Yeah, I'm also curious about both, for sure. I think that maybe we should like A/B test from this point and like try 2 different things to see what works and what doesn't, because I know yet again that we are at a point where it's slightly under extracted, but I'm really curious about how the pulse pouring changes the extraction, or strength in this case. So we got a question over here. How would you know which 2 factors to change up when you have a balanced but bland cup? So whenever you have a balanced but bland cup, you need to change 2 variables. And the one thing that I would look into is what variables look most out of place. So for example, if you have always been grinding at a very fine grind size, for example, maybe the grind size is something that is constantly adding a bad aspect to the cup, and you need to explore coarser grind sizes. So by, even though it's a balanced cup at that grind size, getting it coarser and then, for example, increasing your water temperature would be a thing, or increasing your brewing ratio would be a thing, but it's more about understanding what's outside of the spectrum. What's like looking weird in your brewing recipe over here. So it's more about understanding the normal parameters of what is reasonable with the brewing variables. So looking at videos of people brewing, see their grind size, look at water temperature. I would say a good range is like between boiling and like 90 degrees, but for a darker roast, 80 degrees. If you are doing a darker roast, also lower brewing ratios is suitable compared to higher brewing ratios. So it's more about understanding what variable is kind of more suited for the change and then tweaking those two variables at the same time. Heinrich, it's more about intuition, figuring out what looks weird and needs to be changed, or what you haven't explored yet, and then changing it to explore that path. So yeah, hopefully that helped. Yeah, I haven't brewed yet. Brewing some subtext Kenya at the moment. Oh, okay. I guess we're both on the Kenyan train. But talking about like A/B testing, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I kind of want to see how small of a dose I can brew coffee with, because in my daily like routine, I just drink 1 cup of coffee, which is around 20 grams of coffee. What if I could brew 2 cups in a day and have like a thing going on where I know that I can brew with 10 grams instead, but have 2 cups of coffees that I play around with and test, because I know that I like to just consume up to 1 cup, which is around 300 milliliters of coffee every single day. So if I ended up brewing 2 cups with 20 grams each, it would just be too much coffee for me. But how small can I make it? Can I maybe even brew with 5 grams and do like some weird A/B testing there? That would be rad. Seeing how little I can brew with. What if we can brew with like 2 grams and make like a espresso shot, but it's actually filtered coffee? Like, you would have to tweak a lot of variables to make that happen because the brew time would be so short, but it would be kind of cool to just make like a small sippy cup of coffee. But yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, this stream is Denzo, and I'll see you all tomorrow's probably. And I must say, I love all the chatter. It's great. I love talking to everyone over here, and it's just such a great start to my day. And I hope that it's also a great morning, afternoon, and evening, beginning or end, to anyone and everyone out there. So have a stellar morning, afternoon, and evening, and I'll see you peeps maybe tomorrow, maybe another day, whenever. Okay, I'll close this one first. See ya. Like so. So Instagram is stopped, and now I'll end you guys. Take care.